On our panels, we've had women who are doing fantastic things in technology from a policy perspective, a lot of women who are CIO leaders in government and education. We've seen women who are doing fantastic things in the nonprofit space, and we're very pleased to have a nicely balanced group here at our conference, and we also hope that we'll see more of you joining us at reInvent in October 6th through 9th in Las Vegas. But right now, we are going to be joined by some fantastic leaders across the federal government, industry, and the education space who are leading their organizations and also who are reaching out to other women and girls in technology. So I'd like to welcome to the stage now Teresa Carlson, our Vice President, who was just here a moment ago and who've heard from. Also Beth Bergsmark, who is the Interim Deputy CIO and Assistant Vice President and Chief Enterprise Architect, a very busy woman, at Georgetown University. Rebecca Mark, who is Senior Advisor to the House Republican Conference Chairman and the U.S. House of Representatives. Carmen Kruger, Senior Vice President, General Manager of Cloud Operations at SAP NS2, which is the National Security and Services Group. And Janice Haith, the Deputy CIO, Department of the U.S. Navy. So please join me on stage. And hopefully you all have your Smart is Beautiful stickers. I expect to see those on all your laptops or foreheads or coat jackets, whatever. So we have representatives here from industry, from government, and from education. And we all know that there's a shortage of talent in technology across the board. And we've heard a lot of research about how women and girls have off-ramps from technology, and that often younger girls are very interested in math and science, and that at the junior high age they tend to start to express lack of interest and exit that. So it seems like it's really an issue of workforce development and competitiveness for our country and for the world if half of the people who could be joining that technology workforce are not there with us. So I'd love to hear from you guys any ideas you have about how industry and higher education can partner to develop the next generation of workers. Carmen, you want to start us off?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I think this partnership is an imperative, and I'm coming from an industry perspective. One thing, I'll address the question sort of in two ways. The first is really about the issue of competitiveness, and the second is how we can partner. I'll start with the second first, just to confuse you all. So I think what's an imperative is that we offer the opportunity from an educational system through the career for various points in the life cycle of somebody's career. Can we hear? To be able to catch people who maybe in primary education or secondary weren't interested in this line of work of technology, or maybe felt intimidated to participate in it, and may be able to be picked up at the university level, and Beth will talk about that in a little bit. And then again, offer that opportunity when they enter into the workforce through various programs that industries offer today, companies do, to provide women opportunities to do more than their traditional work areas. That life cycle is a partnership in and of itself between industry and education. So that would be the first way I would attack it. And I think the second piece is really an issue of competitiveness. Let's address that. And to me, I think this is the case for diversity and gender diversity in a technology workforce. It is about competitiveness. There are plenty of studies out there, if you look, about the ability for different genders to supply. The more diverse you have of a problem-solving team, the better the outcome and efficiency of that. The better work product that comes out of that. If you don't believe that, then believe the fact that there are plenty of studies that show that gender differences supply different ways of processing information. So you're going to have better outcomes, better outputs, at least different outputs to the problems you're trying to solve. And at the end of the day, technologists are problem solvers. So the more diverse you have of a team, the better problem-solving capability you're going to have.
It was great hearing from Madison Grella about her passion for coding and the passion she's developing for coding. There have been a lot of studies, that talk about the, girls and boys and their differences in interest there. What do you think we can do about that trend, about building more into education and how we can solve that more systematically? Beth Ann, can you talk a little bit from the education point of view?
1985, 37% of computer science majors were women. 2010, it was down to 14%. And what is happening to the girls and where are they going? And again, when we look at the studies, we see that there's equal interest at the elementary school level, but where it really drops off is in middle school, and it drops further off in high school. So then you have this funnel effect. If girls in middle school and high school are not imagining themselves in a career in technology, if they're not participating in activities that give them that analytical background, if they're not doing STEM in school, it's very hard for them to re-enter when they get into the higher education. So what can we do to actually change the trend early? One of the things at Georgetown is that we're working with a national group, Girls Who Code, to sponsor a summer camp that's free to attract many girls to work together, to create a community where they can see themselves working in technology. I see this with my own 10-year-old who's very interested in robotics. I mean, I think she was actually born to code. However, this summer, she's really questioning, I don't know that I want to do the robotics camp because I'm the only girl there. So I think that we can do a lot in terms of creating groups that get around those stereotypes, that get around the identity. I think we can also engage young girls by talking about the art of the possible, that technology, not just for technology's sake, but how can you use technology to solve the world's problems? How can you use it to build better collaboration? How can you build it to think about new businesses and connect them from that standpoint?
So we're trying to create coding clubs around the world, and because this is, like the panel was saying, this is pretty much a universal problem, except the one location I've been in my travels, which I was really amazed about, was Bahrain. I've been in Bahrain a few times, and I've told this story. I found out there that 60% of the computer science students in Bahrain are women. I was blown away. And I've met with a lot of the government. They have a very small government, but there's many women working in the top jobs, and many of them are actually coders. So one idea is, and the whole concept, by the way, of this hashtag Smart is Beautiful, is for women to actually start doing something and to stop complaining about it, but for us to actually take action. Each and every person take action in the capacity that you have. And if that's for finding a young woman that you can mentor, or a classroom, or a university, or a program you can start, it's really about the capacity that you can take on. And I think it can start at a very early age, as you saw with Madison, but what we can't let it do is fall off at the junior high level.
Yeah, just a comment to add to that. What's really unique about technology today is that traditional notions of coding may not apply. Today, because we can do so many things with different coding languages, we've extrapolated a layer almost above the machine-based code. So I think that'll also help the intimidation factor of thinking that in order to code, you have to actually write out every bit and byte of code. Many of us participate in coding unknowingly, and we're going to talk a minute about the Minecraft effect, but that's effectively it. These kids are coding. They are doing that. They may not realize it, and that may also help the perception issue that many women have in entering this field.
So I'm glad you brought up the international aspect, Teresa, and I was thinking about you can hand it over to I'm going to direct the next question to Rebecca. So one of the things that we were talking about is we were putting a lot of the focus on how can we get girls and women to do the things that they need to do, and Teresa has been really good about asking women to mentor girls and women. I think she's also extended that to asking men to think what they can do. So it makes me think of the UN initiative of he for she, and Rick, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what we could be doing to encourage men as well as women to get engaged in this issue.
Absolutely. So I think the He for She initiative, I'm sure everybody in the crowd is very familiar with it, in that you see that a lot of women, entrepreneurs in particular, are really seeking mentors, people that are going to encourage them to achieve everything that they want. But this isn't just women that need to help encourage them as well, it's all you guys in the audience. So thinking about how do you encourage women to learn that new language, take on that harder task, and really that you believe in them. I'll say, speaking from the congressional perspective, that some of my best mentors actually have been men. And coming from the startup industry originally, the product manager who took the time to teach me how to build mock-ups and wireframes is just as important of a mentor to me as working for the highest ranking female in the Republican conference. And so I would encourage each and every one of you to think about how you're helping all those women in your workforce think about how they can be the next CTO, CEO, CMO.
And Beth Ann, we had spoken earlier about the idea of access to education and to programs being more self-directed, and that could break the cycle of kind of a mentorship or apprenticeship approach to math and science. Can you talk a little bit more about ways that you've seen that work?
No, absolutely. At the undergraduate level, one of the things that we've done is that we've started our own Georgetown GU Women Coders group that was started about a year and a half ago, and we expected maybe 20 students to come forward. The first year, over 100 students, and now we're up to 400 female undergraduates across the campus. And the idea that was really driving the program was to give a re-entry point to potentially to provide students with an opportunity to learn how to code that was risk-free. Because when we talked to a lot of our undergraduates that weren't taking computer science classes, they said, well, I think it might be too hard, I don't know how to jump into this, I'd love to learn how to code, but I don't know where to start. So this gave them a risk-free entry point. And what's phenomenal about this program is that it's teaching them twice a month, Saturday mornings, real computer programming, but the small group projects are really focused on how can I use technology to solve the problems of my discipline. And these girls, they're working together, they're collaborative, and they're really thinking about how to become a competitive digital native in their fields of interest.
Great. So one of the things that we have talked about in terms of bringing more women into technology is the different perspective that women have on a technology project, and that they may be additive or they may actually come at things from another point of view. I know, Janice, you had some thoughts about that. I'd love to hear what you think.
So yes, I agree. Women bring a different critical and analytical thinking set to these projects. We've noticed that the sensory perception and how they view the user experience is actually different. It's a little bit more logical, a bit more feeling. I led a project in DoD that was all women. All women led the project, and the outcome was very good because not only were we able to automate a capability we never had, we were able to take it to levels we never envisioned. And so it turned DoD around in terms of we went from a 100% paper environment to an 80% paperless environment, and now the work is done in less time. And so it made it different because the women were able to say, well, what about this? We should do this, take the next steps, how can we re-engineer the process? Well, we weren't getting that from all the male participants, but I think it brings a different skill set. But Carmen, I think maybe you might be able to add something to that too.
Well, I think going back exactly to your point, as technology is an interdisciplinary approach, it's an intergender approach. So, this is technology permeates many facets of our lives. It's not just about an enterprise software program. It's about things that you may traditionally think women do more of. For example, housework, or to be actually more statistically correct, lawyering, or doctoring. So all these facets have technology embedded in them, the electronic medical record, each one of these things. And I think what's an imperative is that we bring that diverse thought to the process of structuring it and creating it and architecting it. It'll make those outputs a lot better. And again, we've seen that over and over again, and consumer products is a great example of that somebody brought up earlier in our conversation. Your focus groups are not one type of person, nor should your technology architecture be a focus group of one type of person.
So one of the things that we talked about when we were discussing women in technology is not only because of sometimes the hesitancy to join computer science earlier in their lives, but also because of traditionally interruptions in women's work lives, which now potentially are more universal and actually apply to sort of contemporary families across the board. What do you think about the ways that technology can enable on-ramps and off-ramps in careers and retooling as we, as we move forward? Maybe, Beth Ann, do you want to start us off with that?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think if there's one skill that's imperative for everyone right now, it's the idea of adaptability and agility, that you're going to be learning different skills, different technologies, but you're also going to be adapting to different groups of people through globalization, as we're growing. And I think that that really can open the door to a lot of future technologists. When we start to think of the technology role as something that's more abstract, where you can think up and down the stack. We talk about the agile athlete. We're moving away from individuals being the product expert, and I think that's a phenomenal way to attract a more diverse workforce. I think finding creative ways within your organizations to do that, whether it's through mentoring, coaching, training, professional development, trying to build different teams. I think there's enormous opportunity with what AWS is doing in this democratization of access to resources that can get to underserved communities where there's a workforce out there that we haven't even begun to tap, and thinking creatively about how we can do that.
And the concepts of on-ramps and off-ramps is a really important one in industry. Because you can have a workforce that will enter in, let's say a female workforce that will have a gap period in potentially when they're going to have a family. And a very, very important part of that collaboration we spoke about is making sure industry supplies a capability for women and any other, in this case, in many cases men as well, to take that off-ramp, come back on again, and not lose pace with technology. Because technology changes very rapidly. So it's very easy for a woman to off-ramp, whether it be to a different career or to a stay-at-home position, and feel left behind and intimidated to entering back into the workforce. So a very important set of things for industry to consider in ensuring the maintained workforce of women in technology.
Just to add on to that, I think that there's absolutely a lot of different things that we're looking at from the congressional standpoint of how do we ensure that we're affording these opportunities to all of our women who do decide they want to stay in the workforce and want to keep on moving up in their career track while also raising a family. So I think that this is a very important conversation that many in our conference and also I know the caucus care deeply about.
So one really interesting element of this is that the opportunity, because of cloud computing now, has really changed this whole idea of what you can and cannot do in terms of educationally. So you heard us yesterday talk about like Coursera and edX and other groups. And I made a point earlier about the Middle East. I'm going to make one more because it's just such an interesting connection. Many of the women in like Saudi Arabia use YouTube as a way to get educational programming fed into so they're trying to learn online. So the whole concept and idea of that, yes, you can go to courses, but because of online learning and the ability to watch videos, you can really learn and stay up to date on things. And I think that's the reason, quite frankly, technology is such an amazing career path for women, because the idea, well, for everybody, but for women in particular, if they want to stay home or they want sort of a career that's somewhat part-time, or they want the ability to sort of move in and out a little bit, you can stay up to date like no other time ever in the past, just because of online learning, which is which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and on that theme of learning and traditional higher ed versus this more disruptive point of view, I think that we had some conversation about whether we should be pushing more women into computer science as a career, well, not just as a career, but as a major, or whether we should be adding in computer science to other majors. And I think, Janice, you had some point of view on that.
Right. I thought that while we want to have more women do the science technology road, we also still need to remember that we need people to do the humanities. We need people to do the basics such as finance and human resources, because all of that information that we automate, somebody has to be able to have the content, the knowledge, and the history to keep it going. And when we lose sight of that, then we lose sight of what we're overall trying to achieve for the better good. So.
No, I'd like to add too, so one of the things that we're seeing in higher ed is that we're seeing education occur from multiple sources and in many different ways. And we're really, at this sort of reflection point in time in terms of designing, what is the future higher ed university experience. We're looking to more interdisciplinary programs and programs that not only engage students in the dialogue, but look at our students as producers, as rather than just consumers of the experience. And we found that our students, they have incredible energy, innovation, and they understand the technology stack. So it may not be a computer science class, it may be a class in the business school, it may be an interdisciplinary class where they're actually working on projects to do prototypes in a safe, guided environment to solve these issues and to solve these problems in their environment. I also think that in terms of when we look at majors and when we look at minors, one goal should be to see STEM be more mainstream, to be more balanced, because in a lot of institutions where we might see an upsurge in STEM, in others we're seeing a large decline, and trying to really balance that out more, I think is a priority.
I think one of the most interesting stats that I've seen actually is looking at the computer science AP exams that were taken in 2014. And you're looking through the different states and really seeing how many, in this case, women and minorities were taking the exam. And there were actually 3 states in which there was not a single woman that took the computer science AP exam. There was something, I think, around 11 states that either African Americans or Hispanic students didn't take a single computer science AP exam. And I think that we as a whole can do more to help educate our younger people about these opportunities that exist, because taking an AP exam isn't necessarily indicative of what your college major is going to be, but it also opens your eyes to what the potentials are for you in computer science, whether you're going to be a PR maven or if you're going to be a hardcore computer junkie.
I think we're also seeing our students, even at the undergraduate level, start to think of themselves as potential freelancers, that we're seeing a new workforce emerge, where they're comfortable trying something out, building something. I see it in my own children, characterized as the Minecraft effect. All of these skills that they've gained so far in terms of programming, understanding of the technology stack, computer science, they've done so because they were highly motivated to play this game. And once they realized through coding they could change the rules, they would look anywhere to find that information. And that's nothing that they haven't taken a class or a camp or anything to actually go do that. The motivation was so high. We're starting to see that in our 18 to 22-year-olds as well, where they've got this great idea for a startup, they want to try it, nobody had taught them how to do it, but now they've got the opportunity to try that out on their own.
Well, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience here on the stage. I would love to hear from each of you about advice that you have for young women in their careers. And maybe we could start with Teresa on, if you had one piece of advice to give to a young woman, either something that you did or something that you wish you had done or wish you had done earlier, that you would encourage a young woman to do in her career.
Well, my advice is, that there are so many exciting jobs in computer science and technology. And and I didn't start out in technology. I actually do a lot of coding. I felt like I had to learn how to do this as part of my job. And over time, I've just, there's some things I've done. And I started out as a speech and language pathologist. and which I tell everybody I was very scientific. I wasn't necessarily mathematical, which my father taught math, and he used to hound me to do more in my math studies. I wasn't bad at it. It was just not the thing I loved as much. But I found the science part of everything really got me very excited. So I would say for a young girl, find the area, just like Madison was talking about. You gotta try all these areas of STEM out and find out what works for you. And I would say in running a large sales and business organization for a technology company, if you look at the opportunities across what's available, I would say that every single individual that works in my organization or supports my organization, even the marketing function, most of these people are fairly technical in their jobs. So technology cuts across. We need engineers, there's no doubt, and computer scientists, but we also need individuals who really understand technology and can write about technology, can market to technology. And even going in and doing a sales role or a business development role, I tell everyone all the time, it's not for the faint of heart. The individuals that work on my team are very well educated and knowledgeable, and they all have to pass something we call a check and ride, which is the ability to technologically be able to talk and understand the technology and really understand it. So you think about it, it cuts across so many disciplines. So find an area that you really love and like, try things out. There's so many great programs like code.org that we talked about, Girls Who Code, that are out there and available to just test out. But the other advice that I would give is for the moms and dads in the audience, really encourage your schools to have these programs. You really have to start at the PTA programs, I call it, and go in and just ask the right questions of the schools. Make sure that they are making these available. You saw the Singapore government CTO and the UK government, and they already have mandatory programs across all their schools now for coding. And I think here in the US, we should not settle for anything else in our schools. And as parents, I think it's the first thing that we can begin to push is start asking the questions at the elementary school level. Do we have the right programs for the generation of jobs that are going to be available to my children? So anyway.
What's funny, I didn't major in a STEM field either. My degrees are in political science, fine arts. I used to teach photography at Georgetown. What really attracted me to technology was that I love to solve problems, and the more complex, the better. And I found that a lot of individuals that gravitate towards technology that are very adaptable across multiple languages, across multiple stacks, it's really about that desire to bring value to an industry that you're passionate in and a desire to use that analytical problem-solving process to go after it. And I think that's an enormously valuable skill. I think sometimes too many girls that they think that, well, computer science, it's so limiting, the only thing I would ever be able to do would be locked in a basement cube and never see the light of day. But those types of skills you can apply to any field. So I would say that, to be open, to be adaptable, and to, not be afraid. If you're the only one who looks like you in a room, that's okay. Don't let it bother you. Just keep going forward and focus on what you're there to do.
I would just say it's largely believe in yourself and to also take risks. If you told me about 20 years ago that I'd be sitting here right now talking about women in technology, I probably would have asked you what technology was. Because I think that as you see more and more people gaining interest in this area, it's terrifying, frankly, for somebody starting off to ask questions. So I would also encourage those of you in the audience, when you have that young person coming in and asking you, how do I do this? If you can take those 30 seconds, those 5 minutes to tell them what you're doing and how it long-term impacts the long-term goal, I think those are 5 minutes that you can truly influence somebody else's life.
So I'll probably reiterate what these other ladies have said, but I'll kind of summarize it in two things. One is be fearless and feel free to change your mind. And being fearless is not, and these two apply both to men and women. So be fearless in your foray into trying technology, and be fearless in accepting somebody who maybe is non-traditional into that field as a mentor, or as a boss, or a new startup, because maybe they'll just surprise you. And that is one of the benefits I think you alluded to earlier, Teresa, about cloud, is that it has you have a lot of accessibility to technology today, and it's unbounded, and we should take advantage of that. And then feel free to change your mind. It's clear all of us changed our mind. I have probably the most overpriced degree being in technology around, overinvested. So I definitely think that we should all feel free to change our mind, and in that life cycle, if your children or your peers or your colleagues want to do something new, we should provide an off-ramp and on-ramp to do that.
So I would also echo what everyone else said, and I think you have to be tenacious, but you also, as a female, need to be able to sit at the table and speak your mind and voice, because often you're the only female at the table or the only female in the room, and you should be able to get out of your comfort zone and project or whatever in terms of your ideas and thoughts, so that you're not afraid that somebody's going to snicker at it or not accept it. Another thing I think you should do is you need to find a mentor. And it's somebody that you look up to and respect, that may be in the same career path, may not be, but that can guide you to help you get into those areas where you take that risk and you have a good comfort zone. So Tricia,
yep. So, well, I wanted to ask you all as a final thought. Teresa's been talking about smart is beautiful as a way to give everyone an action in the audience, everyone who hears us and everyone who engages with us on social media. What is the action that you would ask of the audience to do to help encourage more women and girls to engage in cloud computing and technology more broadly? So,
I would say mentor.
okay.
I'd say take the stickers that you have and give it to some of your colleagues, or put it on your laptop. That's the action.
I'd add Instagram or tweet about it too. And also, to the point about being a mentor, there's no better avenue, I think, for influencing the next generation.
Yeah, to build on that, I mean, something very simple within organizations, if you have women and minorities in leadership roles in technology, even if they don't have children, connect with your local public school system and get those individuals out in front. What's really key to a lot of individuals is, can I imagine myself in that role? Is there somebody like me in that role? That can be a huge boost in the self-confidence of those kids. I think that's a huge contribution that's very easy for many people to give back.
I think all those I love putting the sticker on your laptop. That's I'm going to do that next. I would say I gave you the action. Make sure your schools, you're asking the right questions about, do you have the right technology curriculum? But I'm also going to give you a greater goal for the audience here. In the United States, we have very few states today that accept curriculum in STEM computer science classes that are taken at the high school level are not accepted as credits toward college. That is wrong and it's unacceptable. So I would say you need to go lobby all your states, talk to your congressional leaders, your policymakers, and let's get that changed. That needs to be changed, because we've got to ensure that our students are taking the coursework that's required so that they get the computer science classes so they can, when they get out and they graduate, we want to get them excited in elementary school and high school. And if we're not even telling them you need to take these classes to graduate from high school, we're not going to create the generation of computer scientists and technologists that we need. And guess what? We need them now. We need them yesterday. So we've got to be much more proactive. So my advice is, let's get busy. Giddy up. Let's go.
Okay, so I think we heard a lot of great ideas. I hope you all will take those to heart. I think we're thrilled to have such a fantastic group of women who are helping to pave the way for innovative breakthroughs and to make the world a better place in the process. So if you could please give a round of applause for our panelists.